AITA for walking out of the hospital after hearing my wife's diagnosis. Am I the a-hole for walking out of the hospital room right after my 32-year-old wife was diagnosed with cancer? I had just rushed back from a business trip to be by her side at the ER. But when the doctor took a deep breath and told us she had ovarian cancer and would need a full hysterectomy, everything shifted. The doctor wasn't just telling us she was sick. He was telling me our dream of having a biological family was officially dead. I get a call from the ER on Friday saying that my wife drove herself there because of searing pelvic pain. I was on a business trip until Saturday, but I drove back in time to be there Saturday morning before she even woke up. A while after she wakes up, the doctor comes in. My wife asks me to stay with her, so I say okay. He takes a deep breath and says that from the transvaginal ultrasound and CT scan results, she has ovarian cancer. My wife starts sobbing, but at first I just stay completely still because I don't even know what to make of it. My wife asks what that means for her, and he says that she'll likely at least need a full hysterectomy, and they'd have to remove her fallopian tubes as well as her ovaries. That news completely jolted me from my chair, because the doctor was effectively telling me that she wouldn't be able to have kids after this, and after years of work I thought we'd finally have a family. I was overwhelmed with emotions of anger, not just anger at the disease, but pent-up anger from the fact that I had begged her to have kids since we were 26, but she refused for her career. And now, instead of becoming a real family, I didn't even know if she would remain the woman I married, or whether the last picture of us together would be the final time I'd remember her looking beautiful, young, and carefree. Because the wife in front of me already felt like a completely different person. My wife started to grab my hand and say, "We'll fight this and we'll adopt." But I shook my head and turned to walk right out the door. I still had my suitcase in the car, so I drove to a hotel because I didn't know if my wife was going to end up being discharged or what. At the hotel, I was at least able to get out of reactive mode, but I was still so incredibly disappointed that our dream of a family was over. I finally was able to get a grasp on all my emotions and feel more like my normal self, in that I knew exactly what I felt about every aspect and how I would react to it from here on out. Later, I get a call from my mother-in-law saying that if I was at a hotel or wherever else, I should just stay there. Am I the a-hole for walking out? I admit it was done entirely on impulse, but this diagnosis just sliced my life and my wife's life wide open. I wasn't going to expel the cancer if I stayed that night, but I did at least make myself fully aware of my situation. And I feel I have a right to be angry that my hope of biological kids, the only kind I ever wanted, is rapidly fading away.
My psycho mother-in-law literally stole our family dog, hid her for 2 years, and faked her death just to force my husband to talk to her. We were completely devastated and even moved halfway across the country to get away from her toxic behavior. But 4 months after we left, look who suddenly tried to run back home. My husband and I have 4 children together, 3 of whom have never even had a relationship with my mother-in-law. We completely cut her off from my children and myself when my oldest was only 8 months old. For some context, prior to cutting her off, I was not treated kindly at all. There were several instances where cruel words were said toward me, or I would be playing with my child and she'd literally rip the toy away, claiming it was too small. Or when I'd say he couldn't eat something, she would go ahead and feed it to him anyway. Eventually, I ended up blowing up and being a complete jerk myself. It wasn't the correct response for sure, but I learned from it and did attempt to apologize. That apology just resulted in me being kicked out of her house, though my husband and child were told they could stay, which they obviously did not. We were able to move into the house we were buying early, but unfortunately, it happened to be right next door to her. Thankfully, we live out in the country, so there were several trees and buildings between our homes. The 1.5 years leading up to this situation is important. After we moved out, my sweet dog would often wander up to her house, and because I wasn't allowed on her property, I couldn't go retrieve her. My husband would have to come home from work and go get her. It turned out my mother-in-law was actively coaxing our dog into her home and holding her there just so she could force a conversation with my husband when he came to get her. Well, after 1.5 years, she realized that trick wasn't working to fix the relationship. One day, I had my dog on 2 separate leads since we didn't have a fence, one attached to her collar and one to her harness. She somehow got out. I strongly believe she was intentionally unhooked by someone, but we had no hard evidence. Per usual, we assumed she was just at my mother-in-law's house again. My husband texted her because there was a cougar killing pets in our area at the time, and she replied. She was up here earlier, but she was gone when I came back. So we continued looking. He went up and asked her face to face the next day, but still no dog. We posted flyers everywhere and feared the absolute worst. Flash forward 6 months with zero signs of her, and we got an anonymous call saying animal remains matching her description were found on the mountain behind our home. I was utterly devastated. We eventually adopted another dog for my kids because they were completely heartbroken. Over the next 18 months, we dealt with constant passive-aggressive comments and her saying, "I want to fix things." But absolutely no action ever backed it up. Because of the toxicity, we chose to pack up, move halfway across the country, and live closer to my family. Well, barely 4 months after we moved away, guess who tried to come back home? Our dog. Our renters saw her on the property and immediately knew it was her. They called out to her, and my mother-in-law suddenly showed up, acting super sketchy and clearly lying to them. The renters immediately called me, and I called the police to report a dog napping and explained the entire history. An officer came out to investigate, and she lied straight to his face. But unfortunately, because we didn't have proof of the dog being outside our property yet, the officer couldn't legally enter her house to search. For 30 days, we were regularly putting up flyers and posting on all the local lost and found pages online. Finally, a woman named Sally, who knows my mother-in-law's boyfriend, saw our post and immediately realized what was happening. She confirmed that my mother-in-law had been keeping our dog hidden inside her house this entire time. The truth is finally out. The police are fully involved, and she is now facing serious criminal charges.